Thank you for browsing page 121. Today we're going to take a look at another faction out of the Rebellion sourcebook, and that is Antares. But before I get into that, I just want to say, please subscribe. Subscriptions are down a little bit. I'm not sure why. I think it's just summertime, but got to keep it growing to keep it going. So please subscribe if you haven't. And also please take a look at my Patreon. Subscribers, I want to say thank you. And patrons, I want to say thank you. That's it. End of the commercial. Now, back to the Rebellion sourcebook. We're going to take a look at Antares and why they became a breakaway faction during the Rebellion. When the Third Imperium first established itself, it expanded to encompass as much former Imperial territory as was possible. Some territories saw the new Imperium as a boon, others didn't want to be part of them. Those had to be essentially coaxed back into the fold. Initially, the growing Imperium bypassed areas unwilling to join the Empire. As time passed, some worlds saw the benefits they were missing and voluntarily petitioned for inclusion. But several major regions, some approaching the full sector in size, had, 7 years after the establishment of the Imperium, become impediments to the continued expansion and consolidation of the Empire. Emperor Artemsis determined that the Third Imperium would encompass the historical territories of the First and Second Imperia, and he began his pacification campaigns to accomplish that end. He created the domains and their archdukes, charging each archduke with the reduction of resistance within their territory. The Archduke of Antares pacified Lishan sector. The Archduke of Lan pacified Daigudgashad sector. The Archduke of Ililish pacified Zarush Agar sector. The Emperor himself took the pacification of Fornost and Delphi. Between 76 and 120, the Imperium devoted itself to bringing under the mantle all worlds which lay within the former borders of the First and Second Imperia. The Julian War. Artemsis' pacification campaigns had one notable failure. They did not incorporate the core worlds of Mishan, Mandar, and Amdukan into the Imperium. His son, Martin II, took upon the same mission his father had failed. The three sectors were, during the First Imperium, the responsibility of a Valani government bureau, Sharushid. In the guise of an interstellar megacorporation, Sharushid still exists, but it long ago lost responsibility for governing that sector. Under the Second Imperium, the territory was self-governing. And then, of course, the Long Night happened. When the Second Imperium collapsed, that was when the Long Night happened, the world kind of got used to dealing with things for itself. They became a large confederation dominated by humans and Vargirs. The Long Night was less dark in this region than elsewhere. Its citizens were reasonably content with the progress and achievements of their culture. Confronted with demands from the Third Imperium that they join this new government of the Third Imperium, they resisted, culturally, diplomatically, and militarily. Martin I, frustrated after 9 years of negotiation, mobilized the imperial fleets in 175 and attempted to integrate the three sectors by force. In the first 3 years of the war, the imperial fleets pushed deep into Mandar sector, capturing the capital world of Lacia and several important industrial worlds, but never succeeding in crushing the people's will. And it went on like that. And by 178, Julian risen to power within the Asimkigir Confederation and had gathered around him an alliance of neighboring confederations. Then Julian took the bold stroke of establishing a protectorate, a confederation of confederations. Its purpose was to resist the advances of the Third Imperium. They wanted to make the war too costly for the Imperium to pursue, and honestly, too politically unpopular. And they did their best for 7 years. The Julian Protectorate fought sporadic battles along the Mishan and Mandan borders, doing its best to push back at the imperial fleets. However, in 185, concentrated and mobilized Protectorate fleets crossed the rift of the Empty Quarter in an end run against Antares, and his long-range raid against the imperial naval depots in Antares and Ley sectors. With two major depots virtually destroyed, the Imperium was forced to rethink its strategies, withdrawing fleets. The Protectorate fleets then turned their attention to the Antares cluster, 12 worlds lying beyond the rimward of Antares. Because the worlds were behind the lines, they were relatively underdefended. They fell after only a brief campaign. Using these worlds as a base of operations, the Protectorate fleets carried the war into the Imperium. The Imperium narrowly lost several battles to regain the Antares cluster, but ultimately proved unable to dislodge the Protectorate. By 190, Emperor Martin I was convinced the Protectorate worlds could never be forced into the Imperium, and he abandoned the fight. It became a case where it was just too costly in terms of money and material and personnel and lives, both military and civilian. It wasn't worth pursuing anymore. It took until 191, however, for the war to end. Julian insisted on retaining a hand in the Antares cluster. By way of compromise, the cluster was established as the League of Antares and given an autonomous status within the Imperium. While the League acknowledged the supremacy of the Imperium, it retained its own rights to negotiate diplomatically and maintain its own armed forces. So it became its own autonomous region. I did a video a few weeks ago on autonomous regions. They're kind of neat within the Imperium. And then we have the Archduke of Antares. Every Archduke understands how close to the top of the Imperium hierarchy he stands. When Strephon was assassinated, the Archduke of Antares understood that the protocol of hereditary succession meant that one of Strephon's heirs would advance the imperial throne. When it became clear to him that Lucan had murdered his own brother to succeed to the throne, Archduke Berzek of Antares came to the conclusion that he himself was a suitable campaign for the throne. He began a quiet campaign within the Moot to line up necessary support. But because Lucan was already on the throne and already dissolved the Moot, Berzk found himself BRZK. So Berzk found himself in a delicate position. He was trying to create support for himself as a successor to Strephon, and that actually could be considered treason to Lucan as reigning emperor. In fact, it is. Berzk was formed to work quietly and slowly in order to not offend Lucan, and especially to not tip Lucan off. As he worked, he encountered a totally unexpected problem: blatant anti-Vargir prejudice. He found that human nobles, by far the majority in the Moot, would not even consider placing a non-human on the throne of the Imperium. There had never been one. The reasons given for things were numerous. Some felt it would be a bad precedent. Others wanted an emperor who would represent the majority race of the empire. Others said they felt Berzk was not the best choice. But regardless of the reasons he was given, he became convinced the Moot would never support a Vargir or any other non-human for the throne. Faced with the reality of the situation, Berzk elected to take his domain of Antares and chart his own course with it. In 1117, Emperor Lucan ordered Berzk to mobilize his fleets and transfer at least half of them to central imperial control in order to fight the usurper Dalinar. Professing obedience, Berzk returned to Antares and began the process of mobilization. So basically, he just said, okay, yeah, that sounds great. I'll get right on that. We'll be bringing the fleets over in another day or two, and then just scooted home and hid behind the fleets and said, nah, not sending them. The name is the Domain of Antares, and declared its independence on 302 of 1117, and adopted the name of the League of Antares. By 1118, the League of Antares announced it had joined the Julian Protectorate as one of its member confederations. Antares. Archduke Berzk of Antares has declared his sectors independent and aligned with the Julian Protectorate. And there's the little symbol, the three triangles. As a member of the Confederation, it retained its own name as well. The territory is often called Antares. The acknowledged leader of the League of Antares is Berzk, Archduke of Antares, a Vargir who traced his ancestry through many generations of imperial citizenship. He is powerful and committed to justice and treatment of intelligent species. The territory is the League of Antares that encompasses 12 systems in subsector K of Antares sector. When Archduke Berzk declared independence, the League expanded to encompass nearly all of Antares and the empty quarter sectors. The Julian Protectorate also encompasses the sectors of Amduken and Mendan. The constituents are the citizenry of Antares, the empty quarter. In addition, the League is a champion for peace and order in the Lycian sector. The ideology: Vargir and humans are natural partners. Archduke Berzk is a champion of human-Vargir partnership. The human dominance of the Imperium has made Vargir along the imperial border reluctant to accept the concept. Vargir raiding across the border discourages human confidence. And the Antares symbol. The traditional symbol for Antares has been in use for more than 5,000 years, but interpretations have changed. Classically, the symbol represents a mountain range on Gakish, the Villani capital world for the region. as the Vargir population increased, Vargir came to see the triangles as Vargir claws. There's a nice little picture of fighting. So there are the Vargir claws or the mountains. You interpret it how you want. So that's Antares. This was really just to give us an opportunity to kind of look at something else in the rebellion. And I liked that this gave us a lot of different choices. They were relatively fleshed out, and we could say, okay, I'm going to go, I declare for Margaret, I declare for Antares. And then you could be part of that faction. And that's one of the things I did like about the rebellion. Now, I did run one or two rebellion stories in the Solomani Rim area during Mega Traveler, and I ran Behind the Claw. Behind the Claw, I have to say, that was kind of my hideaway. The rebellion's not affecting us much here, but when I was down in the Solomani Rim, of course, yeah, the rebellion was very much an active part of the story. So you were still able to play Mega Traveler however you wanted it, and I still had kind of my golden age Behind the Claw, and then the active rebellion stuff in the Rimwood area. So that's all I've got to say today on Antares in the Rebellion era of Mega Traveler on page 121. I hope you're liking this series. I am. I've gotten really good feedback on this series. I'm going to continue through the rest of the factions. Then I'm going to take a look at a little bit deeper dive into the Rebellion era itself, the time of Mega Traveler. And eventually I'm going to round this out with Hard Times, which was a really good source book that was published very late in Mega Traveler. It's still considered one of the best, at least by me, to this day. So that's all I've got to say today. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Please like the video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.